Hello there. Another stark warning about what the economic future has in store for us. Now, just to warn you, Richard has an important message at the end of the video about stopping an absolutely hideous trade, a trade that scoops truly evil people over 100 billion quid a year, and you might not be so keen on open borders after you hear about it. We are being warned that our current financial woes are likely to continue for another 3 to 4 years. And this applies to the global economy, not just that of Brexit UK. And electing a Labour government won't solve the problem either. The cause of all these current problems is that governments and their central banks gave out far too much money during the health emergency, says Agustin Carstens, the head of the Bank for International Settlements, the BIS, which is the central bank for the central banks. He says there were too many handouts and far too much printing of money. While understandable as the COVID crisis broke out, with the benefit of hindsight, it is now clear that the fiscal and monetary policy support was too large, too broad-based and too long-lasting, said Carstens. And he also said that central banks may think that they have done enough, only to find that they need to tighten further. And that sounds exactly like what happened inside the Bank of England recently when they raised rates by a full 0.5% to 5%. And Carstens criticised the central banks for not getting to grips with their loose monetary policy after the 2008 credit crunch, saying that buffers used up in downturns must be rebuilt in recoveries. And as far as I can see, that's something we did not do. In fact, the Tories were more tax and splurge than Labour had been in the past. They seemed to think that quantitative easing and zero interest rates were the new norm. And Labour was worse. They were talking about the need to borrow even more while interest rates were low, with no understanding that when rates reset, the interest payments go up every time you have to roll a tranche of gilts over. And the Tory government didn't do a very good job of explaining to the British people that getting furlough money and the like would lead to the bill coming in at some point for everyone. Or maybe they didn't understand that bit themselves. Maybe they also thought it was all free money. Especially as they've all but given up on recovering any of the billions embezzled from the system through the rushed government pandemic schemes. That has to be paid for as well. Now, the BIS is another of these supranational institutions, so you have to wonder if someone will come up with an idea for a new global financial system to take all this pain away. After all, as I said earlier, the BIS is the central bank for the central banks. And for proof that this economic crisis is much wider than Brexit UK, the IFO Institute Business Climate Index for Germany shows that business sentiment in the German economy has clouded over considerably. The report says that the manufacturing climate has deteriorated significantly, with hardly any business remaining unaffected, while order backlogs are too low, it said. And this has weighed heavily on the service economy, with transport and logistics suffering more due to the manufacturing downturn. Overall, expectations were markedly pessimistic and companies' assessments of their current situations were worse. Above all, the weakness in the manufacturing sector is steering the German economy into turbulent waters. And Germany is the Eurozone engine room, remember. With all those rich people out there, you'd think the taxman would be concentrating on getting the right amount of cash from them. But it seems that they have another target. Because there is one group of people being chased for their dosh, The taxman is going after people who don't put in their returns on time. But get this. In the tax year 2020 to 2021, Tax Policy Associates said that 92,000 of the lowest paid were fined for late submission, but only 39,000 of the highest paid were. And guess which group gets hit hardest by those fines? According to the FT, 40% of those pursued for late filing charges last year, charges that can really ratchet up fast, 40% of those pursued had earnings below the £12,500 income tax threshold, about 180,000 people. But because they got it from 2 or more sources, they have to put a tax return in. And one of those so fined reportedly lost their home as a result. So those at the bottom of the earnings scale are being effectively taxed, and taxed over heavily for making a mistake. Surely the fine should not be many times in magnitude of the amount of tax owed, especially if that amount is zero. And at the same time, HMRC is cutting back on what's left of its awful customer services. HMRC customer service these days seems to revolve around sending out fines. Richard.
Okay, so this is slightly different. I'm going to ask you all to do something for me, not just for me, but for a lot of children out there. I'm going to ask you to go to the cinema and watch a film called The Sound of Freedom. It stars Jim Caviezel, who played Jesus in The Passion of the Christ. And it's a true story based upon a man who goes and saves children from traffickers. And it's a very, very serious and dark subject matter. But I think this is the most essential film for a very long time. Yeah, this is very important. Please help in this. In the descriptions box below, there is a link to a YouTube video which will show you the trailer and an interview with Jim Caviezel himself, the director, and the man who Jim Caviezel plays, who the story is based upon. And it's very powerful, let's just say that. I think that this is an incredibly important opportunity now for all of us to stand against probably the greatest evil that's taking place right now in our world. This goes beyond anything else. Yeah. There's a lovely little surprise as well at the end of the video. So I do recommend you watch the whole half hour if you can. It's very engaging and it's very, very emotional and powerful. Please do this. If you're a journalist, please write about this in your columns. If you're a social media influencer, please get the word out there. And just to everybody out there, please just spread the word of this film. It's, as I said, it's called The Sound of Freedom. And very important. Oh, if you're an MP, mention it. Just mention it in passing if you have to in the House of Commons. Do whatever it takes to get this film out there. This needs to be the biggest film of the year. It really does. There's no other way of putting this. This is too serious. Anyway, listen, you lot, you take care, and don't forget to tune in tomorrow to Jeff's midday video, and I will see you again tomorrow also at 7 p.m. with Jeff. Okay, take care and enjoy the rest of your day. Bye now.